Barossett. I'm here with my good friend Gene Mitchell. We're both board-certified criminal lawyers, and we are welcome your calls.
Yes, the show
early on. This is live now on August the 17th, so please call that number up in the left-hand corner early. We'd like to talk to you. It makes the show a lot better, doesn't it, Gene?
Every time. The callers make the show. You
They
make
do.
the call, but the callers make the show.
Well, in any event, we always start with a little small talk, correct?
We do, and you know, my nephew, you know Peter.
Yeah.
Of course, right. Peter starts Pensacola High today. No, tomorrow is his first day. Milton has already started, and so what I always say to young people and to parents of young people when they're starting school is, from our standpoint, students have less privacy. So if you're a young person and you put something in your locker that's not supposed to be there, the deans can go in there and get it out. So
and don't put anything in your locker that shouldn't be there. That's the
Look at
main
you.
thing.
All right,
That's the main thing.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
All right. Have you done anything recently to talk about during the Barry Barossett Small Talk?
Well, you know, I went down to Jocko's for lunch the other day, and the tall ship was down there, 176-foot ship that's well over almost 200 years old, and it was beautiful. And it had been there this past weekend. They had crowds of people coming down to see the tall ship.
How long are they going to be here? Do you know?
They left. They left, I think, Tuesday. They were or actually, it was Monday I was going down there, and they were getting ready to pull out.
Well,
But they had been there for the weekend, and a lot of people went to see him. So, and speaking of ships, we went on a little boat trip for Gene's father's 80th birthday.
That's right. It's
Right?
wonderful.
And it was wonderful.
Late happy birthday again to my dad.
Yes, happy birthday, and we had a great time. There was a guy there that was just crazy singer.
He was related to Jerry Lee Lewis.
Jerry Lee Lewis, and he sang just like him, beat the piano to death. And a lot of friends of your father's were friends of mine. It was good to see a lot of people, a lot of those young people.
You know, for me, the most awkward part of the whole deal was George Overby. Now, I enjoyed seeing you have a reunion with Mr. Overby. You know, he had rented an office space to you a long time ago.
Right.
But for me, and I'm trying to compliment him and trying to be self-deprecating because it's appropriate. You know, I had a trade-in. I used to drive my mom's car around,
Right.
and I didn't take care of it. And you know, Mr. Overby, because he's a nice guy, he trades my mom's car in for another one, and I've always worried that he didn't understand how poorly I'd taken care of, you know. So I would see you guys, you and Mr. Overby on the boat, and I kind of gave it some space, but you know, he was nice to me.
Well, you know, George Overby's got a lot of history with downtown Pensacola. He used to have an office right across from Trader John's where his business operated out of, and he made accommodations for us. He was renovating the place, says, tell us how you want your office. So 4 lawyers, we moved into there, and it was a handshake. We never had a lease. He was a great guy, and he also owned the Red Garter downtown. He owned the Bottle Club downtown. He owned a lot of property downtown, and he's now recently, I think, sold most of his downtown property and moved his little business out to Olive Road. He's
Right. Well, you know, you're
so everybody would know George Overby if you've been down there years ago. He's always been a figure down there.
Everyone that talks about Mr. Overby talks about him the way that you just now did. And so now he has Interstate Pawn, and it's a car dealership as well on Olive. And in the same way that he was very kind to me with, you know, trading in one car and getting another, in the same way he was with you, he is that way. So
Yeah.
Mr. Overby, he owns Interstate Pawn, and it's a used car lot. And he is honest as the day is long, and he's a wonderful guy.
He is a great guy. So that's all. Anything else, Gene? That you
Well,
can think of?
we got some text messages from 2 weeks ago. All right, so can I start just reading
Sure.
some of them? All right, the first one is, if I'm out on bond and I get arrested, well, what we tell folks is, if you send us a text message, we will read it, okay? It says, if I'm out on bond and I get arrested for a new offense, must my first bond get revoked? You want to answer that, or would you like me to?
I think it depends. If you're taken into custody as a result of violating your bond, the bondsman's probably going to go off your bond right away.
Well, I appreciate that and I respect that. Here comes my answer.
Yeah.
If you're out on bond, and while you're out on bond, you get arrested for a new bond.
New offense.
For a new, forgive me, a new offense. and the state attorney's office that's prosecuting the first offense sees it, and they file a motion to revoke, then, you know, hopefully you can get in front of the judge and have a hearing before the judge just snaps it up. My personal feeling is that the system, the judges, the prosecutors want to revoke your bond because you're more likely to enter a plea if you're in jail, is how I feel about it.
Well,
but when I'm going to shut up in just a second. All right, I'll get in front of a judge and I'll stand there and I will say, you know, this person has not missed a court date.
Yeah.
He hasn't done anything dangerous, you know, and the judge will say, well, Gene, the statute authorizes me to revoke the person's bond if while they're out on bond, they commit a new offense. And I'll say, yeah, you're authorized to, but you don't have to, you know. But more often than not, I lose that argument and it bothers me. You know, I'd lose it probably once a week.
Yeah. Well, you know, Gene, the bondsman can go off the bond too by his contract. Even if the judge doesn't do it, the bondsman, if you get a new violation, can say, look, I think you're a risk, I'm going to go off your bond. Of course, the best thing to do in that case is to hire that bondsman again for your new case.
Okay, I've blown this horn for as long as you've been having me on the program. I've got plenty of good friends that are bondsmen, but I wish the whole bondsman industry didn't exist. You know, and here's that conversation. I feel like I see you shaking your head. I feel like in the beginning, you know, the system said, here's a condition of release, a monetary condition. And we feel that for this person, the monetary condition necessary to assure the person shows up for court is this amount. Well, then along comes a bondsman and says, hey, I can help folks do that. And what has happened is now if a judge feels that a proper bond is, say, $1,000, they'll recognize that the person's only going to pay 10%, so they'll make the bond $10,000. I feel like the bondsman industry has messed up the whole deal.
I tend to disagree. Now, you know, in federal court, you very seldom have a bond.
Well, that's utopian.
Well, it's utopian, but some offenses for which you're arrested have a presumption of detention.
Sure.
So you start out with that, and then if it's a white-collar crime usually, and you're not likely to flee, you're going to get a bond. If it's not a drug offense, you're likely to get a bond. But the thing about it is, they have a different system up there. They have a limited number of cases compared to state court. And I've seen many times where a client couldn't get out of jail but for the help of a bondsman. And so I still think there's always a need for a bondsman. You know, the ideal utopia situation would be that everybody's treated equally, that they set a reasonable bond in each case. But you know that's not the case. You know,
what do you think about that when I say our good dear friends that we care about that wear black robes that are judges are sitting looking at a situation thinking what a fair financial condition is, and what they're factoring in is the role of the bondsman. So instead of giving that person that hypothetical, you know, Gene Mitchell client who doesn't have $500 to his name, right? Instead of making that person's bond something that they can afford, they figure, well, they're going to hire a bondsman anyway, so they wind up making the bond amount 10 times as much because they know a bondsman's going to be used.
I don't think they do that. Do you believe they do that?
100%. I've heard them say so.
Well, if they do, then of course file a motion.
File my motions, man.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that a lot of times the bondsman or the judges set a bond that they think is reasonable and significant enough to depend upon the circumstances. I'm
probably going to make all my friends like Kerry Carlisle and all these guys hate me for this.
Look, I've been supporting bondsmen for a long time.
Me too.
Not because they benefit me, they benefit my client many times. Otherwise, they'd be sitting in jail pending trial. And some of them have been acquitted, so they never had to serve any time. Especially they're presumed innocent, you know, so they ought to have some reasonable bond that needs to get out.
And they work 24 hours a day. You know, I mean, every one of us has had, you know, we could name 10 different people that meet us at the jail at 2 in the morning to get our friends out of jail. I mean, they're great.
And the other advantage is they can get you the quick in, quick out check.
Yeah.
That means a lot to people. A lot of people don't want to spend half a day in jail or any longer than they have, and so a bondsman can come in there many times and there are some cases you can't get a bond anymore now initially. You know that.
Well, we're talking about something that lends itself to detention hearings, and I want to get your perspective on this. All right, you know, just as they have detention hearings so often, if the defendant wants them in federal court, in the past couple of years, we've started having these detention hearings in state court, where our favorite Judge Milton Hirsch from South Florida wrote these two wonderful opinions, right? But you know, now the arguments we continue to have in a state court detention hearing,
Right.
it's to the government to do a two-pronged analysis, right? The first thing is the government, in order to detain your client, they must show that there's a great likelihood that your client committed a dangerous offense,
Right.
right? Then it's to go to the second prong, which is to determine whether there's anything or whether detention is necessary to
the
protect
protect of the
society
community.
and to assure the appearance. And I feel like these judges that I care about, that I like, that are good people, so often will just see the nature of the offense and not even think about anything else. And just say, well, we're concerned that the person committed this offense, that there's a great likelihood that they did, and therefore the second prong is satisfied. And
See,
that really bothers me. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the detention hearings aren't necessary. If somebody is on a first appearance and they think they're a danger, they can put a real high bond on them right away. And then that ultimately leads to the attorney filing a motion for bond reduction in order to get him out. So, you know, it's just now they're making the detention hearing before you get any bond, quite frankly.
Right.
And so, you know, I don't see that it serves any useful purpose, quite frankly.
Well, I've said that they're a waste of time recently, and that's more my frustration because I've gotten bad rulings.
I don't say waste of time, but I just don't think they're useful. There are many other ways to handle it, you know.
All right.
But any event,
Well, you're better than I am. All right.
I'm not better.
Well, you're more diplomatic, and you're better. I want to talk about, this is kind of small talk because it impacts our area. You know, we've had Benjamin Stevenson come on the program. You know,
Right.
I've always referred to him as my favorite constitutional law attorney, and you know, I talk about him the way that I talk about John Barasset and yourself in terms of his talent. He has been disturbed by these red light cameras
Right.
for a long time. And Benjamin isn't really even a criminal defense guy, but he's really been disturbed by the onset of using red light cameras. And the reason it has always bothered him is that it's about a ticket coming on the owner of the car as opposed to the person. You know,
Right.
you'll get a piece of mail that has a photograph of your car running a red light.
My wife, I got one. My wife was convinced it was a hoax at first.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, don't pay that. I said, I paid it.
Right on. And so that bothered Benjamin a long time ago. I never did anything about it. Then we've had my friend Larry Downs come on the program, and you know, the punching plumber, and this thing has bothered him before. I told him, you know, leave it alone. Well, now about a year ago, there was a case in Broward County, and a South Florida judge, Broward County judge, for all the reasons that Benjamin brought up, found this statute unconstitutional, found that traffic infractions are quasi-criminal in nature,
And
they require the heaviest standard, the proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and they require the government to prove every element of the offense. Whereas these red light camera tickets
Do not.
What they say is, here's how you can defend yourself. If you fill out an affidavit saying that my husband, my wife, my sister, my whatever is the one driving the car, you know, then you can defend, which shifts the burden.
Right.
Well, this South Florida judge has said the whole thing's unconstitutional, which is just what my friend Benjamin, just what my friend Larry Downs has been screaming all along.
and yet there was a ruling here by a county judge, as you know.
Right. So we have these lawyers that we love, lawyers that we admire. Greg Wise is an outstanding lawyer in the public defender's office, super guy. He gets one of these tickets, okay? He goes and argues it in front of Kara Smith, Judge Kara Smith, a friend of ours. Sometimes I say she's the best judge in the whole building. I really like Judge Smith. No disrespect to the rest of the judges. All right.
You keep getting
I keep
yourself
doing it.
into it
Yes. All
deeper
right.
and
Kara
deeper.
Smith is wonderful. Okay. All right. Anyway, Judge Smith rules against Greg Wise.
Well, if he rules not against Greg, but he ruled the fact that it is constitutional.
Yes. Here's what Judge Smith said, and I'm getting this from Greg Wise.
Right.
Okay. Greg says that what Judge Smith said was, I disagree with this South Florida judge in that I don't think that traffic infractions are quasi-criminal. I think they're entirely civil.
Civil.
And therefore, for the traffic infraction statute to cause the person to have some sort of a burden to prove their innocence is okay, right? So now, guess what happens? I've confided on this television show plenty of times that I'm a horrible driver, and I got one of these doggone red light tickets. And I ignored it, or I forgot about it. I didn't notice it, so I didn't. So because I didn't pay the darn thing, it shifts, so it goes over to the clerk's office. So now I actually have one. Well, you know, not to drop too many names, but I think that the gentleman that has earned the reputation in this town for the past 40 years as the best person dealing with your driver's license and the like is no doubt William Fisher.
Right.
So I saw William, and his number is 850-433-1717. I saw William in court today, and I said, hey, William, I think I'm going to need to hire you for my red light ticket. Yeah. And he said, Gene, I'm filing a motion to declare the statute unconstitutional.
Right.
All right, now, I'm going to bring this home. We have like 8 or 9 of these darn red light traps on 9th Avenue, all up and down 9th Avenue.
9th and Fairfield?
All up and down 9th Avenue. So almost any one of us, except maybe you, because you're a great driver, is getting these things. And what I encourage you to do is call up William Fisher and say, William, make me part of that motion to dismiss.
Well, see, one of the problems with these cameras are, you know, you get a left turn signal, okay? And somebody just sits there through it, and you know how long it takes. To get through some of these lights on like it's Fairfield and Fairfield and 9th Avenue.
Right.
And so the guy will just sit there in front of you. Then he starts to poke along, and then there's all these cars behind you, and you try and race through. And that's how I got mine.
You got one?
Oh, I got one. I paid
well, then
it right
call
away.
William. Oh, hey,
No,
Eddie's telling us
mine.
it's time to go for a break.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Don't go away. August the 5th, we're live. August 11th, we're live.
We are live.
Hi, I'm Kathy Holsworth, Artistic Director at Pensacola Little Theater in the Clark Family Cultural Center. Join me the first Monday of every month at 7 p.m. for the Center Stage, where I get to talk to my friends and your neighbors about all things on PLT stages.
Welcome back to Justice for All. I'm here with Gene Mitchell, and we are live right now, and please give us a call. We haven't had any calls, so call that number up in the left-hand corner. We'd like to hear from you.
In the last segment, we were talking about the red light cameras, and I just want to reiterate again, you know, the way that I feel about you as a criminal defense lawyer is how I feel about William Fisher with regard to anything driver's license related. And if you get one of these red light tickets, please join us in his motion to dismiss. Please call him at 850-433-1717.
William Fisher basically specializes in license offense and minor traffic offenses, and I think DUIs, he does some of those too. But he basically specializes in license things. So if I have a client that has a commercial license or something and he's got an issue, he can't get it, I always refer him to William Fisher. Well, he knows it backwards and forwards.
Isn't it fair to say that Tommy Ratchford had earned the reputation as the best DUI attorney from, say, 1975 to whenever he passed away in 2017 or so, 2019, something like that. And he was the best because it's all he did, and he was the best because he had William Fisher sitting there in his office doing everything administrative.
Right. That's true. Okay, listen, I want to talk a few things about some of these criminal cases.
Fair enough.
Here, okay? I don't know if you all remember, but Tupac Shakur,
man.
Tupac Shakur, yeah.
He
was killed almost 30 years ago. He was gunned down. And today in Las Vegas, I think it started maybe yesterday, they have charged Dwayne Keefa D. Davis with organizing or orchestrating his murder. And this case has been dormant for 30 years. They never found the person that shot Tupac. Yeah.
You got to listen to some Tupac.
Yeah, well, I am it's been a long time. But they have never found the person that shot him. And apparently, when this Davis guy, Kiefer D, wrote a book,
Okay.
a biography, and basically about his gangs and how influential he was. And so they're using a lot of that against him to tie him into this alleged murder. Now they're going to have a tough time doing that, but
this isn't the first time we hear about this sort of foolishness. Some artist goes and writes a book, and the stuff they put in the book winds up being eerily similar to a crime they
Right.
committed, and now the author of a book gets we've seen this happen before.
like O.J. Simpson. If I had killed,
Let's just
Yeah.
suppose.
but any event, that trial's going on over there in Las Vegas. And then I'm sure you all have been following. There's some great trials to follow if you want to follow them. The other one is Lindsay Clancy. She is the young mother who killed her 3 children. Apparently, I think she drowned them in the basement. I'm not exactly sure, but she did kill them. And she is being tried right now. And basically, they're putting on a mental health defense, which basically means they acknowledge that the death was caused by her, but that she did not have the right state of mind. You know, I don't know if their standards are similar to ours or not, but basically, because of her mental condition, she could not form the intent to commit a crime. And so that's their defense. That's a good case that's going on. You'll see it in television.
That kind of thing always gets me because all the states are different. You know, I know what's necessary for an NGI, not guilty by reason of insanity, defense here in the state of Florida. You know,
Yeah.
We'll go and hire someone like Dr. Mark Ruiz to do an evaluation, you know, to determine whether the person meets the statutory in Florida criteria for insanity. For the most part, the way I decide it is not being able to appreciate the wrongfulness of the conduct.
Yeah.
But then I don't really know how it is in other states, so I get confused when I try to.
Well, most of them are somewhat similar. You know, the feds, I think, have a different standard, but the key is if you're not mentally responsible for the crime, then you couldn't have formed the intent to commit the crime, obviously. And I had one over in actually it's north of Bay County, I guess it was in Shipley, where a young man had shot at somebody, not killed him, but hit him. And my expert found that he was insane at the time. I gave a lot of the information, kept feeding a lot of the information to the states, who was really pretty conservative, and he agreed with my guy. He came to the same conclusion, both of them, which is very unusual, as you know, a lot of times. And so basically he was able to avoid prison, and he is going through mental health conditions.
You know what frustrates me with regard to, you know, when a mental health expert, a psychologist or a psychiatrist is looking into whether a person is insane for an NGI type offense, is where the doctor will author a report that says, I'm determining that this person does not meet the statutory criteria for insanity because they were running away. And the doctor will say, well, the fact that they were running away suggests that they recognized that they were in the wrong. And you know, the way the movie The Joker ends is with the Joker running away from some cops. You know,
Well, in my case, the
he's
guy
supposed to be
outran the
insane.
police and went all the way to Bay County.
And you still had a doctor say he was insane?
All of them.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
a great doctor.
Yes. But, well, the state's doctor agreed too. There are a long string of circumstances, but it's really an unusual case. And, you know, I've had 2 of those like that over the years, but it's always tough. A lot of times lawyers will use the insanity defense in a first-degree murder case in order to gain sympathy for their client on the sentencing phase. You know that.
Sure.
Okay. Any event, and one other case.
Right on.
One other case. There's another case going on. It's called the Staged Wreck Murder Trial. And this is a federal case. And it's a federal case because this disbarred lawyer, there were a group of lawyers that were basically hiring what they called slammers, people who would get on the interstate. I'm talking. I'm sorry, I'm kidding you. They get on the interstate and they basically would put on their brakes, and then somebody'd slam into them, they'd claim injuries. Well, allegedly, this disbarred lawyer, because he was doing this, and another guy are presently on trial in federal court for allegedly killing the slammer who was going to testify at their trial. So that's another interesting case.
Barry, I always say we'll read them all. Listen to this one.
Okay.
Hi, Gene and Barry. I was wondering if you both could share some of your cool or memorable trial moments. Love the show. Now, I feel like I should go so that you can upstage me.
Okay.
Fair?
Yes.
Okay. One of my favorite trial moments was when I was about 25 years old and I had just gone to a conference.
Yeah.
And I'd gotten an idea for a conference about recreating the scene. And so when I later on had a driving under the influence trial, and I went to a toy store and I purchased a whole bunch of little men and little cars, and I couldn't find any cops. So instead of cops, I found Star Wars stormtroopers.
Yeah.
And true to what I had been taught to do at my conference, my FACDL conference, I had, when the officer that was testifying against us, I said, would you come down here to this little world that I created with toys and cars? And I handed him a stormtrooper, and I said, now pretend that this is you. And I said, show us where you went. So now I had this member of law enforcement taking the stormtrooper as though it was him and walking it along. and so then I asked him, what the scenario was like, and he said, and I knew the answer.
Yeah.
He said it was raining, and I said, well, was there like thunder, thunder and lightning? He said there was. So I got to play with the lights, and at some point, Judge David Ackerman, who's a really cool guy, right? At some point, he's like, all right, Gene, enough of this garbage. But I thought that was, as that was going on, I can remember thinking, all right, I'm 25 years old, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't care if I never have another trial in my life, because this is just that cool. So texter, caller, thank you for helping me relive a memory. You can see my smile. I'm really enjoying thinking about it. You're up.
Well, I've had a lot of interesting cases over the years, but
Yes,
one that still sticks with me is my client was allegedly working in a ER room at a hospital. And this person had been brought in, and for some reason or another, they claimed that my client had taken a lighter and got it hot and basically
I know this story.
burned
His
his genitals.
Uh-oh.
and
Controversial.
And so, I got to thinking about that, and I thought, he was charged with aggravated battery. I said, that couldn't be. That didn't happen that way, So I went out and I got a bunch of lighters, all different brands, Bic lighters,
And you, oh
and
no,
I
you did not.
I tested them. So then I got one exactly.
What do you mean you tested them?
I tested them on my wrist. So anyway,
okay.
So during closing argument, I get out a lighter, I light it, because this is the way the guy said he held it, and then he put it to his genitals. So there was an alleged witness there. And I took it and I let it burn like that, and I took it like this and I put it right on my face. No marks.
Wow.
The prosecutor gets up and he goes, in his rebuttal, he gets a lighter and he takes it, puts it on his wrist. He goes, he's right.
That's awesome.
And so he was acquitted of aggravated assault and convicted of battery, which is an unlawful touch.
You told me that story, but you didn't tell me the whole story before. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So the prosecutor really took a gamble and regretted it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could see I did everything that you could right in front of the jury, and then I put it right on my cheek. And thank goodness it worked like it did in practice before.
Wow. To the caller's question, or the texter's question, I should tell this story. It's not me, but it's so wonderful. I always say that being a criminal defense lawyer is great because every one of us can find a home.
Yeah.
Are you friendly with Whitney Ponson? Did you know?
No.
Okay. Whitney Ponson, she's now gone. She's had a baby and she's moved to New York and gotten married. But I used to say that on my best day, when I was in the public defender's office in the 90s, I was 10% as good as Whitney Ponson. And during the coronavirus...
Gene always sells himself short. He's a good lawyer.
No, I'm saying the way it is. Yeah. Anyway, during the coronavirus shutdown, when not a whole lot of cases were being tried, remember a case that was on the news where one coworker had poisoned another? Does that ring a bell?
No, I do not recall that.
Well, it got some attention mainly because the courthouse wasn't hardly trying any cases during that shutdown period. Well, Whitney tried a case. And here Whitney was, she's 25 years old or so at the time, and she's trying a case with a prosecutor who's probably 45 or so, something like that. And in closing, this 45, 50-year-old Hall of Fame prosecutor started likening the defendant's conduct. Now, the defendant, in fact, had poisoned her coworker, and it was on video. And so this, credentialed 50-year-old prosecutor started likening the defendant's conduct to, I think it was Kramer versus Kramer, or some movie from our time.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Whitney Ponson comes along, and she stands in front of the jury, and she says, "I'm not old enough to have ever seen whatever, Kramer versus Kramer, whatever movie it was where there was War of the Roses, maybe, where one person poisoned another, and it was criminal." And she says, "But what I did see was Dumb and Dumber." Now, a 50-year-old, a 60-year-old might not have ever seen Dumb and Dumber. Have you seen Dumb and Dumber?
No.
Okay. All right. See, you would not. You're the best. You are. And you know it. But you wouldn't have been able to make the argument that Whitney made, and you wouldn't have won that trial. You know what she said? Dumb and Dumber was this hilarious Jim Carrey movie in which one of the two dumb guys put laxatives in the food of the other one. All right? Which is every bit as bad as any sort of poison. But it's funny, and no one thinks about it as criminal. And here comes 25-year-old Whitney Ponson, and she starts likening her.
Whatever happened to her?
She went off to New York. But she won that case.
Yeah.
And you and I wouldn't have been able to do that because we don't know Dumb and Dumber. I went and saw Dumb and Dumber after I saw her do that closing argument. But the point is we can all find a home doing this kind of stuff.
Well, I'll tell you why I like to do criminal defense. I've always felt sorry for the underdog. I've always had compassion for people.
You do.
And wanted to help people. And I get a lot of pleasure in that. A lot of the people that we represent didn't do what they are charged with. They're overcharged. And so many times we help them, and it may not be a not guilty verdict, but it may be probation, or it may be some alternative, pretrial release, or pretrial detention, or
pretrial diversion, pretrial intervention.
But in any event, and so in my years of doing this, I've had a lot of satisfaction. I think there's been a change today because of the internet, and because people today many times will second guess your advice. You're finding out that they'll check the internet and try and find a case that's similar, and why isn't mine like that, and why am I being treated like that? And I think basically it has interfered with lawyers who have good advice for their clients, and sometimes they just want to get the best deal they can by looking at something that really is not practical. You know what I mean?
Addie's giving us a sign.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be right back with another segment of Justice for All.
Hey everybody, I'm Eric Bramer.
And I'm Charlie Hobart.
You can tune in Fridays at 5:30 on Blab TV for Wahoos Weekly, your weekly in-depth look at the Pensacola Blue Wahoos on the field and off.
We'll be talking to players and highlighting initiatives in the community that make Pensacola so special.
And when the Blue Wahoos are here at home, it leads right into live game coverage from Blue Wahoo Stadium. That's Wahoos Weekly, Fridays at 5:30
on Blab TV.
Wow, we're back.
Yes.
Folks, we're live. See that number up in the top, 850-432-7768. Give us a call or text us. We'd like to get some input from you guys.
We have another text message.
Okay.
All right. Can something I post on TikTok be used against me in court, Barry?
Of course.
Of course.
Yes.
You know when
If you're charged with an offense, stay off social media. Don't talk to anybody. Don't text anybody. Don't make any statements. Talk to your lawyer.
I got a grand jury subpoena with a client of mine to go to New York. And I sat there in a debriefing room with the FBI and my client. And the first thing they wanted to know was what all their handles were for Facebook and everything else.
Right.
And, if you think you're not getting looked at, and you're just wrong. But you know what that's making me think of? Anthony Fauci has gotten all this attention and dominated the headlines recently, and I didn't think it's newsworthy at all. That big deal. He exercised his Fifth Amendment privilege when he was in front of Congress or the Senate. But you know what was interesting there was one of the headlines was that the government had his phone, right? And so I'm thinking, well, how in the world did the government get his phone? And what's the big? Why is that so significant? So I read the article, and you know what it says? It says it's his government phone, right? And when you retire, if you have a government phone and you work with the government and you retire, then they get your phone.
Or a government tablet or laptop or computer. It's their property. They don't need to search for it.
Right. So now, whatever, and I think all that's on there is just him saying, man, look, I've become a big star. I'm getting all kinds of attention. And it's making him look kind of silly, but nothing that bad. But the point is, stuff that's on his phone, stuff he put on TikTok, stuff I say on this talk show probably, can be used against you.
Stuff that you write in a book. We talked about that earlier. Anything that you write or put out there certainly can be used against you as circumstantial evidence, sometimes direct evidence, So it's important. It's definitely important not to discuss your case in the media. Don't talk to your cellmate if you're incarcerated. Don't talk to anybody. Nobody's there to help you but your lawyer. And the public defenders do a good job. They represent a lot of the people that are incarcerated. They go to the jail, meet with them. I mean, they do a good job.
I think that if God came down and said, here are the 10 best lawyers in any given town, I think 5 would be from the public defender's office. I've always said that. I'd like to talk about this because this has hit Pensacola. I saw a Wall Street Journal article recently about a scam that originates in a prison in Georgia where these scammers pose as members of law enforcement, and they call up citizens and they say, you have missed jury duty. You have missed federal jury duty. And for each day that you missed, you must post this bond or else you're going to have to go to jail. Now, when I read this article, I remembered getting a telephone call from my friend Todd Bibsa about a year ago, and he was telling me that he is getting this, and we immediately called the Federal Public Defender Office, and they said, oh, that's a scam, right? But I have a dear friend right now that it's happened to, and what happens is, you get these calls, they sound official, and you start thinking, well, I'm right, so I'm going to follow the rule here, and it's all going to turn out okay. And they cause people to go and check out money from their bank accounts and take them to these weird places, and people are getting victimized and victimized. So my point is, I can tell you of multiple scams that are happening in Pensacola right now. I'm going to interrupt what I'm saying right now to say this. If you have someone you care about that gets arrested and you're going down to the jail to bond them out, there's a great likelihood you might get a call from some scammer saying, hey, I'm here to help you post a bond for your loved one.
And I can even get the charges dropped maybe or anything else.
Right.
All kinds of things.
At the rate of about one time a month, I talk to some mother or so who gives someone like that their credit card number.
I told you before the show that I had a client that was in federal custody, and the lady went down and paid somebody some money to get him out. And the federal courts don't even use bondsmen in most cases. So I mean, it's really
that's the scam,
the
jury scam. And it's hit Pensacola in a big way.
Let me just say this: if you get a call from anybody that claims to be law enforcement and wants you to pay money for anything, don't do it. Don't do it. I mean, I know you're a lot of times in dire straits. That's a song too. And you want to help your loved one that's maybe in custody or something, but these scams are real. And I've had, for example, Gene and I are members of the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, and I got an email from the president or a text message of the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, wanted me to buy so many cards to give donations. And I said, why would he be wanting me to buy cards, cash cards, in order to make donations to somebody? So, I mean, it was obviously a scam. I immediately contacted him. He had been hacked. But anytime anybody asks you for money over the phone, there's all kinds of scams.
Yeah.
Your friend lost a lot of money.
It's pending. It's right now. And
tell him how much
Well, it's an ongoing case, so I don't know that I should talk about it. But I happen to know that
a lot of money.
Yes, yeah. All right. So be careful. If you get a telephone call that sounds a little bit odd, it probably really is.
Or a text message or email. All these scams are basically working in order to get you to pay money. And the first thing you should do if you get a call like that is hang up and call a lawyer. Call somebody. Tell them, well, you're going to check with you. Oh, no, no, don't do that. I can help you get him out right now. If you call a lawyer, I can't help you. Baloney. Okay. Make sure that you do not pay anybody money.
You mentioned the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. You mentioned the president. When I first joined that organization, the first time I went to a meeting, I met, I think it was Catherine Bradley. It was whoever the person was back then.
Catherine Bradley.
And I introduced myself as being from Pensacola. And she said, "Oh, well, you're from where our president. You're from where Barry Barassa is. So but you're also in the National Association, correct?"
I'm a member of the National Association. I'm a member of the American Board of Criminal Trial Lawyers.
Did you see this piece that the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers put out recently, saying that we have an ethical obligation to become well-versed in AI tools because the prosecutors are? Did you?
I saw the article. I didn't get a chance to read it.
Well, do you, have you started to embrace AI a little bit?
Well, I'm looking at it. I think some people in our firm are using it, and I'm familiar with how it works, but I haven't fully adapted it. No.
Well, here's what
this is important to know, because AI doesn't necessarily give you accurate information. Whenever you file a pleading now in Florida, you must certify. You're aware of that, aren't you? You doing that?
I am.
Okay. You must certify basically that you have reviewed the contents of this motion, and that to the best of your knowledge and ability, it is accurate and true, or words to that effect. Because people were drafting these AI motions, citing cases, not checking them out, and the courts found out they were totally wrong.
I'll tell you where it gets me more. So the problem that you're talking about is I'll have these clients that are smart guys, and my own personality often is deferential, and I'll have these guys that are intelligent that I'm representing, and they'll come to me and say, "Gene, I drew up this motion. You need to file this motion." And I'll look at it, and it'll be like 27 pages long, and I'm thinking, "Oh man, this thing is probably AI, and now I better go," and that's where it starts to hit me. But I feel like I was late to the game with regard to AI. And where it happened to me is we have relatives from California, and they came in town a few years ago, and one of them was going on and on about it. And I thought, well, I need to learn about this. And the first question that I asked one of the AI engines was, I'm a Florida State graduate. The first question I asked was, what was Deion Sanders' best game? And it says, well, Deion Sanders' best football game is pretty much understood to have been the 1989 Florida State versus University of Miami matchup, in which Deion had an interception and a punt return for a touchdown as in the victory over University of Miami. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking, this is crazy, because I happen to have been watching that game, and my cousin was in the band, Kevin, and we lost 31-0, which means Deion didn't have any punt return for and I asked it, well, why would you just make up an answer like this? And it didn't give me a very good answer. So the point is, if my first question to AI spits back an imagined answer, I wind up being apprehensive. So when I see something like the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers saying that I have an ethical obligation to become well-versed in this, what it means to me, and I see you want to say something, what it means to me is, okay, I get that there's some value to it, I need to embrace it, but really what it means is I'm probably going to benefit, but I'm probably also going to spend about 25% more time working.
Say like, what is it,
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. That is an open AI. You can never put your client's information in there because it's available to the world. You breach confidentiality. You have to have a secure AI, in order to put any information about your client in it. It's just like a vault where it's only available to you. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to go on AI and I'm going to check on this and that. Well, really, they're profiling you on this AI, on this open ChatGPT or whatever it's called. I use it. But it's remarkable what it can do. The other day, I had been riding my motorcycle, and I put in there, I couldn't find my manual. I says, what should be the tire pressure on the front and back tires of my motorcycle, which I described it, and within seconds they came back and told me the pressure should be 42 in the rear and 36 in the front. Awesome. It's amazing what's on there. But as amazed as you are, the more you use it, the more they're profiling you to find out how you react, quite frankly.
I got another question for you. Ready?
Who's sending these?
I don't know. Must be one of the hundreds and hundreds of viewers out there. Okay. If I'm a passenger in a car, now truthfully, this is one from 2 weeks ago. Lindsay told me when I came in. It says, if I am a passenger in a car and the driver runs a stop sign and gets pulled over, do I have to show my ID? Barry?
No.
No.
Typically, no.
Okay.
It's just a traffic infraction. Now, if things go different, and if all of a sudden they see some open marijuana in the car, then they can get you out of the car.
What if the cop that pulls you over for the stop sign happens to have a drug dog in his car, and the darn thing alerts, and the cop says, hey, everyone out of the car. Do I have to get out of the car?
Yes.
Even though I'm a passenger?
Yes.
When I get out of the car, do I have to show my ID?
That's a good question. Probably.
All right. All right.
Because at that time, he's got probable cause to detain the vehicle for sure, and possibly some of the occupants, depending on where the drugs are located, if they're in the car.
Okay. All right. Do you watch any of the WNBA?
I have, because I became sort of a fan of the young lady, what's her name? Caitlin, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, I went to school in Omaha, Nebraska, and I went to school called Creighton University. Yes?
You know what?
Tell me.
That's one of the few states I've never been in is Nebraska. I've circled all around it, but I've never made it. I was within miles of it. So anyway, tell me about Nebraska.
Oh, man. Addie's saying we got to go to a break.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jennifer Laborde, Doctor of Audiology at the Hearing Center at Medical Center Clinic. We've been on Blab TV for longer than I can remember, at least 15 years. It's been one of my favorite things to do. I think because I'm on Blab, people view me as an expert in my field. We've had definite business growth by being on Blab. I would say that we have seen a strong increase in our business incrementally over the years that we've participated. We are the Hearing Center, and we are Blab TV.
We're back for the final segment of Justice for All. Again, we are live. It's August the 11th. We look forward to any calls that you might have. We haven't had any this evening, but we've got a lot of text messages, which is nice as well. So we're glad to answer those. Any other messages, Gene?
I'm trying to, can I record an interaction with the cops on my telephone? I'd say you may, but it's going to just make your officer unnecessarily angry.
Well, you cannot do it surreptitiously. In other words, you cannot hold your secretly your camera or your phone or whatever it is and record him, because it's against the law to record somebody in Florida without their consent or knowledge. So if you're going to record a police officer, you better say, I'm recording this.
Good advice. Good advice.
Yeah. It's a felony, I think, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
But it's weird because, you know, it hardly is enforced.
Right.
You know, I have plenty of times where we're working on a case and it would turn out that the witnesses against us are doing that, you know, to my client, and I'll go to law enforcement and say, look, this witness that's being used against my client in this pending case committed the crime of recording my client without them knowing about it. Please go arrest them, and I get nowhere.
You know, for example, Alabama doesn't have a law like that. In other words, you can record anybody's telephone calls. And I think basically it was put in to protect politicians, quite frankly. That's what I think. That's my 2 cents. I think they passed this law so that people couldn't talk to a politician, record his statement, and then the next person he's telling just the opposite to, you know. So I think that's why it was enacted. I don't think it really protects anybody, and like you say, it's very rarely enforced.
Yeah.
you know, people, but it's enforced against the people that may get it. Oh, I got this great recording of my wife admitting it, you know, does such and such. Well, that's not admissible.
Yeah. All right, before the break, we were starting to talk about the WNBA. And, you know, kind of like what you just said, you know, Caitlin Clark seems to be, Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, Paige Buckets, you know, are incredibly talented.
Yes.
I really enjoy watching these guys. But the rest of the WNBA seems to be a comedy show. You know, there's constant fighting, there's constant unnecessarily flagrant fouling, and then there's this discussion about, you know, who's eligible to be, you know, in women's sports. And now you have these two retired NBA men who are good guys, you know, thoughtful. I think one of them ultimately aspires to be in the Senate, who have declared themselves for the WNBA draft.
And as I asked Gene, I said, are they transvestites? Are they gay or whatever?
Well, what they say, and they look at the camera straight and they say, I am someone who sometimes identifies as transgender. And I am declaring for the, and the commentator says, well, what's going to happen if none of the team drafts you? None of the teams in the WNBA draft. He says, well, there's going to be a problem. There's going to be some suits. So this is headed in an interesting direction. And you know, even when she was up for confirmation, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown said, can you define what a woman is? And her answer was, I cannot. You know,
Well,
so now we have two good men.
But what point are they going to make? That's what I want to know.
I think what their end game, I believe, is not to play in the WNBA.
Right.
I think their end game is clarity. And I think that what they want is they want some definition along the lines of what our 7th grade biology teachers tell us. Some conversation about X and Y chromosomes and that sort of thing. Because right now it's
Which is X and which is Y?
I was 7th grade was a long time ago, man. I mean, I just know that's.
I don't remember.
Come on, guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. All right, let's talk about Anthony Fauci for a second.
Yes.
Okay, I had alluded to it a few minutes ago. All right.
Right.
Anthony Fauci, you know, during the pandemic time, he had a 71% approval rating. You know, Brad Pitt was playing him on Saturday Night Live. You know,
Right.
And you know, now his approval rating is a little bit lower than 71%, and he's been called in front of the Congress, and 100 plus times he exercised his right to not testify. He pled the fifth, if
Right.
you will, and he's getting all kinds of criticism of that, and I think it's silly, right?
Well, as you know, and we talked, Biden had pardoned him because there had been so many threats against him that he just didn't want him to put up with all these potential threats of prosecution for whatever happened during the pandemic. And Fauci probably didn't need that. But because he got that pardon, they have focused on him now, and they couldn't prosecute him for any prior acts because he's got a pardon, federal pardon. But Rand Paul has said, at least that's my understanding what he said, and I think I saw him on a talk show the other night, that we want him to talk, and if he commits perjury, he needs to go to prison for 5 years. And as you mentioned, some other states are looking to prosecute him if he commits any type of violation. So you as a lawyer, what would you advise him if he's called before Congress?
Well, it's a no-brainer. He should exercise his fifth. The two arguments against him asserting his Fifth Amendment privilege both fail. One is, well, you know, you've been pardoned by Joe Biden, so you have no reason to claim your fifth. Well, just as you said, there are 4 states which have said we want to prosecute him. The other, I'm a little bit more interested in. The other argument against him claiming Fifth Amendment privilege has been before he walked out there or sat out there and said, I'm taking the fifth, he spoke for like 2 or 3 minutes. He gave a soliloquy.
As to why?
And the argument is, well, you can't just walk in a room and talk for 2 or 3 minutes, and then when it comes time to get questions, raise your hand and say, I take the fifth. What do you say to that?
Yes, you can. I say you can. When you're advised of your rights, you know, and you're talking, all of a sudden you can say, okay, I waived my rights, but I'm not speaking anymore. I want my lawyer, and that's the end of it. He certainly can assert his fifth.
Well,
There are questions and issues about if you start to talk about the offense, you can be considered to waive your
I think
right.
that's what they're arguing.
And so basically, you know, you got to be sure.
All right.
But in any event, I think it's a witch hunt.
Well, you know, I
If
think
there's
it's,
witches around,
it's
I think
well,
that's
I think
what-
it's a sign of the times. I think that if you were to ask, you know, Rand Paul, really, why are you doing this? You know, really, I think that some of his reasons would be, well, you know, there were some folks that Joe Biden's administration went after and prosecuted. So we have this sort of, you know, prosecutorial tennis
Right,
match.
Right.
Yeah. All right. How about, here's another court-type circumstance. The United States Court of Appeals ruled just this past week that Congress and not the president can make the determination that the White House walls can be demolished and remodeled. And the president has said, no, I want to be able to do that, and I want the Supreme Court to rule on this.
We'll see what happens. Who knows what's going to happen?
All right. Now, this falls into a little bit of a public service type announcement, I think. You know, I'm a junk food addict.
Oh, I agree.
You saw me today, man. I mean, I can't help myself. But I haven't done a lot of things. One of the things I have not done is kratom or kratom.
I think we're very running on
Is it
short
time
of
to go? All right, don't do kratom. It's 30 seconds. Oh my gosh, don't do kratom. Okay, like 5,000 people have died using kratom.
Well,
so
the
don't do
other
it.
the other thing is that both are
Uh-oh.
what's his name? Kennedy.
Yes.
Kennedy and the former head of Drug Administration agree that junk food is bad for people, as bad as cigarettes.
Well, I was talking about kratom, but yes.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Well, that's true.
Thank you very much. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thanks.